Well, good afternoon, everybody, and a happy new year to you all. The start of this year today, we are really going to, well, I hope that you all had a good break. This is our 16th weekly meeting that we're having. And it looks like we're going to keep this meeting going till the middle of February, when we're going to hopefully see the arrivals taper off. I hope you all enjoyed the break. This meeting, really, we're just going to give you an update as to the accomplishments which we made together in the last year, and talk a little bit about some of the opportunities that are ongoing and how the ongoing relationships or collaborations are really leading to the kind of results that we hope to achieve. Just a few things for starters. I'm really, really excited to announce that on the 1st of January, we had our first Afghan family that arrived, have a baby boy. So the St. Louis community is growing. But also last night, we had a second family actually have a baby girl. So we have some gender equality here in growth in the St. Louis region. But this is good news in the sense that for these families, it has been an incredible journey. You can imagine these women going through the ordeals of getting on planes and spending time on camps and then transition through hotels and thank God they are now in homes and have brought forth these babies to be part of this great community. And these are some of the things that are lost in this whole resettlement effort, because we just don't think about this, but we know that we've seen that there are many cases of families that are expecting, as well as the number of children that have to be cared in the process. And again, we're only able to succeed in doing this by leveraging the partnerships, working with volunteers to support these families. And we're truly grateful for that. We're really doing this as a community, and that's important. So we will shed some light a little bit on what we have accomplished. I don't know, Amina, can you just pull up the agenda for the day today so that I can run through that agenda and then turn this over to Blake. But we're going to just start with our weekly update that's really going to focus on the opportunities for engagement. And we'll talk about our projections for arrivals in the next week, or at least this week. And then we thought it was important to really give an update on what we accomplished together in the last year for this community with reference to resettlement, both of Afghans, arrivals, as well as people arriving from other countries. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Blake for the weekly update. Blake, the Senior Vice President for Programs here at the International Institute. Blake, please.
Thank you, Ray, and good afternoon, everyone. For our update this week, we wanted to mention, of course, as Ray said, as we do every week, talking about what we see in the immediate future. Oh, can you hear me?
Blake, if you're speaking, we can't hear you, or at least I can't hear you.
I can hear you, Blake.
I can hear you.
Okay. Then that's me, not. Please go ahead.
Well, you have the PowerPoint, so no, we for the update as usual. I do want to mention what we see upcoming in the immediate future, but also have some additional numbers to add to this list. But for this week, we do have 28 individuals expected to arrive, which is below what our capacity, stated capacity was of 50 a week. This 28 number does include a case of 13 that arrived yesterday, and that case of 13 is our largest case that we have seen this resettlement period. There is a family tie there, so there is some good supports already in place locally for that. very large case that will be helping to assist in finding housing shortly. Based on the arrivals that we've seen to date, we have more than 400 APA arrivals, Afghan parolee arrivals that we have already resettled, which means that there's approximately about 100 more that we expect between now and the end of this month and into early February. There is still an opportunity for St. Louis to receive additional AP arrivals, but in terms of the commitment, as previously stated, this additional 100 that we would see would reach the end of that initial commitment. We overall have seen across the region, pardon me, across the country, in terms of refugee arrivals, there have been about 3,222 since the beginning of October in this new resettlement year, and predominantly those folks are coming from Syria, Congo, and Sudan. And so we can expect that, at least for the first part of the resettlement period, which will begin again coming up in just, I guess, next week. Once resettlement resumes, we can expect to really see the demographics kind of play out similarly. Syrian, Congolese, and Sudanese primarily in this first part of the resettlement period. Right now, there are 1,400 refugees booked to arrive through mid-February. And with more being set up in the pipeline, interviews are occurring overseas. However, there's no in-country processing for Afghans at this time. Regardless, though, we still expect to see Afghans arriving after the beginning of and middle of February. There's an expectation that about 2,000 Afghans a month will be processed and resettled, even beyond this initial APA resettlement period. And so these folks will primarily be special immigrant visa holders, and others will be getting resettled. And so while we talk about sort of the conclusion of the APA program in Afghan resettlement, there's really going to be a tail to this, and it's going to be intersecting with an increase in arrivals. We'll talk more about that in a second. Regarding housing for new arrivals, as of Monday, we did have 105 arrivals in hotels, and another 298 folks that are actually now have been placed in long-term housing. And that is thanks to many of you on the call today and support that we've had from the community in sourcing and procuring long-term housing options for our clients. The fact that we have such a high percentage of folks, 75% of those folks that have arrived currently in housing, is really a testament to the work of the community. And I want to thank everybody here who's been a part of the community calls, raising awareness, and maybe referrals even for us to get connected with property management firms and landlords to help get these folks into permanent housing. Very much appreciated. Looking back, and we'll have a little bit more numbers to dive into when we get into the year-end numbers, but looking at the cases that we have, cases of 1 to 5 individuals are staying in a hotel an average of 3 weeks before being placed into permanent housing. This has really sped up over the last couple of weeks, where we're seeing sort of less time in the hotels for these newly arriving, especially these smaller cases. But if we look back through the beginning of this resettlement period, it is about 3 weeks that folks have been staying in hotels in those cases of 1 to 5. But when you expand those cases to 6 to 9 individuals, we're seeing an average hotel stay still of about 5 weeks. This again is reflective of the challenges that we've talked about many times in this call of sourcing 3, 4, and even 5-bedroom apartments. A case of 13 that has arrived will be in need of very large housing, and that is still where the crunch is here locally, and where we still continue to seek support in sourcing these types of housing. The refugee arrivals, as I mentioned, are resuming on the 11th of January, next week. Right now, we have resettled at the International Institute 30 refugee cases since the beginning of October, and that's on top of the Afghan resettlement that has been taking place. And so that means we can expect to see another 970 refugee arrivals really between January 11th and the end of September. Which means that, as we're transitioning away and the Afghan resettlement program is drawing to a close, we will simultaneously be seeing a ramp up in refugee resettlement, as we've talked about before. There are plenty of opportunities to get involved, not just with Afghan resettlement, but with refugee resettlement and all of what we do here at the Institute. And for a little bit more insight onto the ways that folks can get involved, I want to turn it over to my colleague, Carlos Suarez. Carlos.
Thanks, Blake. Yes, and good afternoon, everyone. So here at the Command Center, or the Command Center here at the International Institute, we are also engaging the community on ways of getting involved with the resettlement efforts. In particular, we have been updating and launching our volunteer local application, which we will get a link here in the chat shortly. But basically, it revolves a lot around the immediate needs that we have for families, and that includes 24-hour visits, airport pickups, and the 24-hour visits really revolve around meeting with the families within 24 hours in which they arrive, and then also taking them for groceries so that they can get groceries established here in the area, as well as and also for medical transport. As already mentioned, we welcomed 2 new babies this year so far, but there is a lot of medical transportation needs just with this winter time period and just coming here to St. Louis. So that's something we see a lot of need for, and then also just general ad hoc or general needs on a regular or daily basis. So that's up on our volunteer local app application where individuals can sign up. The sign up process does include going through a background check. So some volunteers already have that done, and for those that do want to get involved, we do require having a background check done, which I think takes about 3 days to complete. But it's a really easy form that takes just a few minutes, but 3 days to process is what I'm saying. And so via our volunteer local application, we do have specific timeframes in which individuals can support in specific times. And then once someone signs up, they do receive a confirmation email, and then there might be further follow-up from there. We've also included volunteer opportunities through this application based on regular needs. So sometimes something might change, or there might be an adjustment to the needs that we have, and the volunteer will be notified via email. But these are really strong ways in which the community at large can get involved. And if there's any questions on that, feel free to reach out. I will also mention that we do have some really strong partnerships in which we've signed and formalized memorandums of understanding, or MOUs, with larger community groups on specific needs, so that we can involve community organizations moving forward. So yeah, just to give a shout out to Welcome Neighbor, House of Goods, the Little Angels Foundation, Christian Friends of New Americans, and Oasis International, some groups that we're working with or looking to work with more formally, that we've done over the last months, and I'm looking forward to moving forward. So I think that covers it, Blake. Unless there's anything else that you'd like to add, or any questions.
One thing I wanted to add is that we do have an upcoming community support volunteer orientation and training. Orientation for folks who have already gone through the recruitment process. We have another informational session scheduled for the 18th. We can push the time of that out. I don't know if Kelly or others have that time available to share. I'm unsure it's the time on the 18th, but I do believe it is in the afternoon or evening. But we can go ahead and share that out with everybody else. Thank you very much, Carlos.
Could I
Yeah.
mention something? Okay. Hi, this is Kelly Moore, the Community Engagement Director here. it's important to note that the volunteers that we have posted are both time sensitive and also can be flexible. So flexible in both ways. You know, once you sign up to volunteer, for example, we have housing setups. Sometimes the housing setups may or may not happen. So if you sign up for the 9 o'clock shift and you know you're going to be volunteering for 20 or for 3 hours, then, and you come to the Institute and maybe the house wasn't ready, or maybe there was a problem with the plumbing. There's all sorts of reasons why housing may or may not be available when you sign up. We do try our best to email the participants who have signed up in advance to say, okay, it's not going to happen today. So it's a really easy system once you can use it on our website. If you're looking for that one-time opportunity, that's wonderful, but we have lots of people who have done now housing setups 3 or 4 times. And so those people usually tend to be the leads because they've done it multiple times. So it's a really flexible system. The key word is flexible. So thank you to the volunteers who have already volunteered. And thank you to those who may want to volunteer.
Thank you, Kelly. With that, we'll go ahead and move ahead with our 2021 year in review. And with regards to this year in review, we talk a lot about the fiscal year, the resettlement year, et cetera, et cetera. The numbers that we're going to be talking about here are truly the calendar year numbers. And there are quite a few trends that I think are very interesting, can help us guide our work as we head into this new year with a clear understanding of who it is who's come and the circumstances that they're coming from. So within 2021, we actually did see 574 arrivals. That includes Afghan parolees as well as refugee arrivals. And of course, the Afghan parolee arrivals were backloaded this year and really were just came between the 28th of September and the end of the year. So that is obviously a very marked increase in arrivals that we saw in the last quarter of the year, which we'll dive a little bit deeper into a little bit later. Amongst the refugee arrivals that we did see this year, the #1 country represented was actually Afghanistan. We were seeing Afghan arrivals before really any of the parolees were coming. We were still seeing Afghans resettled. And so Afghans still represent the largest group that we resettled as refugees this last year. The other groups, again, are similar to the groups that I mentioned previously, nationally, that we've seen resettled to this point, and that includes folks from Syria, Congo, and Sudan. Amongst the APA cases, there is still a large difference between the demographics of the cases between APA, Afghan parolees, as well as then when compared to refugees. And it starts with the case size. The average Afghan parolee case size is 3.9 members, and the refugee caseload, the average cases size was 2.7 members. We are also seeing much younger caseloads within our APA program. And it's right on that threshold of 18. And of course, as you all know, over the age of 18, there's many more, at 18, there's many more work opportunities, full-time employment is available. And that 18 actually is the average age for our APA arrivals. But when you look at the refugee arrivals, that average age is 22, meaning that there's folks who are, amongst refugees, the average person is ineligible to complete high school the traditional route. Whereas the arrivals coming as APA are on average. Now, when you look at median age, we see that the APA arrivals skew even younger, right, than that average, with the median age being 16 years old, and amongst refugees, that median age being 21. This has implications not only for access to education, but also employment and earnings potential within the family. Within our APA cases, there are more members, but there are fewer of them that are theoretically at least work eligible as adults. Whereas amongst refugees, we're seeing a larger number of individuals in the case who are actually work eligible. We're also seeing, again, with fewer earners and larger cases amongst APAs, this sets up a very challenging resettlement period for them with limited earnings potential, given the number of working adults in these cases. Just to jump back to that 574 arrivals for a little bit of context, in calendar year 2020, the International Institute resettled 133 individuals. In 2019, that number was 230, and in 2018, that number was 177. So in 2021, we actually resettled more individuals than we did in the previous 3 calendar years combined. So this was a sudden and very large increase that we've seen, and even within 2021, as I keep mentioning, we can show you some data that will show you that was not even evenly dispersed, right? That a lot of that, most of that, in fact, was folks who arrived in the last quarter of the year. On to the next slide. The numbers that we saw for the largest resettlement month for us for refugees was actually August, where we had 55 arrivals, and the vast majority of the folks who arrived in that month were coming from Afghanistan. Within APA, the largest month that we had was 255 arrivals, again, which dwarfed each of our previous years, each of the previous 3 years total resettlement numbers in 1 month, with 255 arrivals. The largest APA, the second largest APA month, of course, was December with 102, and the second largest refugee resettlement month was June with 13. So big decreases when you look at the second busiest month for each set of arrivals. Looking at the combined data, and this is APA arrivals as well as refugees, the largest resettlement week we have had in the history of the agency was November 14th through November 20th, with 159 arrivals coming in that week. The volume, of course, as we mentioned several times, is functionally triple what we said our full stated capacity would be on a weekly basis of 50. This backlog is something we're still contending with. We have some of the larger cases that arrived that week that are still in hotels. Some of the larger cases of 9, 10 are still in hotels, hoping to find apartments that are suitable given their large case size. The number of arrivals, we've never been able to even welcome these folks at the airport if it wasn't for the determination and the organization of our resettlement team, Ariel Burgess, Shada Shakti, and their staff. And I want to extend a large thank you to them, as well as the support of our volunteers who helped us transport clients to the airports over the last couple of months, or clients from the airports over the last couple of months, and help with our housing setups. A very big thank you to all those individuals who are part of making this period of resettlement very successful. And the next slide here is really just a visualization of when we talk about a market increase in arrivals, this really kind of hits home, I think. You can see in the first 3 months of the year, each of the 3 months, we only resettled 1 individual in each of those months. And if we expanded this further back into 2020, you'd see that we had several months during the pandemic where there were no arrivals. Many months in the pandemic where there were no arrivals, and we were staffed appropriately for that. And so this increase that we did see was at first gradual in the summer months, May, June, July, and August. Then we're consistent to the early part of fall with a giant spike in November. And really the intent of sharing this slide with you all is to show you the really amazing numbers that we've been able to see over the last several months, and the work now that you all have been attending these, that you understand the work that goes into each one of these individuals, and each number on here is an individual, a person with their own hopes and dreams and wishes for resettlement, that we are honored to be stewards of that process for. But it takes a lot of human effort to create a welcoming situation for these clients. And it isn't just the staff of the International Institute that does this for each of these individuals. It is all of you within your spheres of influence, within your community groups in which you are conveying the messages that we deliver here on a weekly basis. These are the sentiments that are coming back to us, the offers of support that we are receiving, really, I think is a good, fine display of the welcoming standard that we have set here in St. Louis as a community as a whole, not just the International Institute, but all of the organizations that are working with refugees and immigrants have really come together to welcome these folks, and the work is not done. Right, there is still much more to do, but this encapsulation of the work in 2021 is really meant to pause and reflect about the good work that has been done, and of course, much more that is still to be done through the course of this resettlement year. And so with that, I just want to thank you all again once more for your support and assistance throughout this period, and really look forward to continuing to work with you all as we continue to see more and more arrivals in the weeks and months ahead.
Thank you very much, Blake, for that the picture that you just painted and the weekly update. We'll pause here to take any questions that our audience may have with reference to all of the information that has been shared. We're not seeing any question. I know there has been one request. We continue to see a lot more organizations stepping up and helping with whether it's school registration and all of that. One thing that we really ask for when you do send out an email or call with reference to assisting with, say, school registration, we really want to keep track of organizations that are helping out. So it's really important that if you are part of an organization, that you state what organization you are with, because that will help us add that organization to the list of organizations that we have that we're working with. Again, there's many people that are stepping up, and it's really important that we bring everybody into the fold. So that identification is important for us, because if there are follow-up questions as well, we also know who we can engage with. So this is one request that comes from the team at the International Institute. One. Secondly, I really want to thank the number of organizations. It was one of these meetings that we just spoke about meals, I think 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and how challenging and expensive they were becoming. And when we spoke about that, we didn't even imagine how organizations were going to step up to support this initiative of helping provide meals. I would say that we have probably cut down on expenses over 50% as a result of all the organizations that have just stepped up, whether it's Welcome Neighbor, Little Angel Foundation, House of Goods, all of these organizations that have just stepped up, through the holidays. I think our clients really did enjoy great meals during the holidays because of all of these organizations that stepped up, and I really wanted to highlight that. I'm truly grateful. I know last Sunday we had the Little Angel Foundation that was out there, not only providing meals, because it was more than that, sharing even soccer balls and playing with the kids and paintings and all of those things that really contribute to that welcoming St. Louis that we want, that we're all aspiring for. So thank you very much to Farah and Reese for leading the effort and bringing out all of those volunteers to support us. I see a question from Alan. With reference to this, I'm going to bring, I'm assuming Anita is here. Anita was here a few minutes. Anita, can you address this question with reference to registration?
Hi, I think, Ala, are you referring to K-12 registration of the children, or? Oh.
She's asking, do volunteers supporting the Institute know where to go to for school registration?
Right. Do you mean school registration for the children or for the adults? I'm sorry, Ala.
Children, it appeared that in earlier statements, it was mentioned that volunteers are supporting some of the families with school registration. So
Right.
that was a follow-up to that.
Yeah, but I think what he was referring to was registration for adult classes.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
yeah, no, I think and you know, we're struggling a little bit with trying to get a system in place where there's less confusion, because it does become very confusing for our registrars. For example, if they receive a call or an email from a volunteer in the community on behalf of a client, you know, we don't know who else that person has spoken to. But when it comes to school children, my understanding, and I don't know if Blake can speak to this or Ariel if she's on the call, that all has to go through Institute Connection, because we're responsible for making sure those kids get to the school that they're supposed to go to. Now, of course, school enrollment for K-12 is reliant on where they finally get housing, what school district they are placed in. But I don't know if Blake and Ariel want to speak to that at all. I know we probably are overdue for another K-12 stakeholder meeting, and that should be happening soon. I don't think the date has been chosen just yet, but
you know, we will accept assistance with school enrollment. However, it's my understanding, and I have been out for a couple of days over the holidays, that all of the children, either in their own housing or at hotels, have been started screening to be enrolled in city schools or in the county schools. So there's a good possibility that without contact with the Institute, some of the children are being provided duplicative services. And that's what we really would like to avoid. And that's why we would like, you know, to have the information before any group or volunteer takes clients to enroll in school, so that we can make sure that, you know, we haven't done something similar, wasting our time, your time, and the client's time.
Right. Yeah, I just want to echo what Ariel said. It just adds so many layers of confusion when there are so many people involved and we don't know who's with what organization, who's doing what. So yeah, if we can address that through, at the very least, identifying when a volunteer sends an email or a phone call and gives their name and phone number, you know, who are they with, you know, how is it that they're connected to that client? That will help us understand the context and maybe figure out where that family is in the process of registering not only themselves for registration of English classes for adults, but also for their children.
And something that we have launched with our community partners, who are our MOU partners who we met with yesterday, including CFNA, Welcome Neighbor, and Oasis, is we've created now a system where our volunteers can actually document the services that they're providing for clients to ensure that we are not duplicating service. And so that's a process that we really launched in earnest just yesterday. But it is a way for folks who are supporting our clients through a relationship with one of the organizations I just mentioned, to really chronicle what the services they are that are providing, and ensuring that we're not duplicating our services there. And again, we welcome any organization that would like to be a part of this process to connect with our command center and become one of our MOU partners and take part in this process. If school enrollments are something you feel you might be able to help with, or your organization might be able to help with, as Ariel said, we welcome that. We want to make sure that we're formalizing those relationships so the information isn't getting lost in jumble.
Blake, I have a follow-up question. This is Farah from Little Angels Foundation. Riz is at another meeting with another partner, so he's not on the call today. So he started exploring, you know, he has a lot of connections in the industry, and he's talking to business owners about potential job openings for the new arrivals, and who, you know, who'd be the best person in your organization to discuss the new possible initiative with?
Chelsea Hand is our Director of Workforce Solutions, and I can give you her contact information in the chat here. Okay. I can say that there's, as we've mentioned several times on these calls, there are quite a few barriers to employment right now, including documentation barriers, and that we are really concentrating on working out for clients so that they can get to work as quickly as possible. But Chelsea is coordinating our job placement services here at the agency and can fill you in more about what she does, and will be the right person to receive any of those referrals.
Okay, that's great. I do have a second question. So there's another initiative that we are exploring, and this really has come through, you know, all the artwork that the kids in our community provided to put on the boxes that are going to the families so that they really get a welcome feel. So a reading specialist at Bridgeway Elementary, she asked her elementary school students to make posters for the Afghan families, and we got like 50 posters for this last meals that we did on Sunday. I asked her if she would be interested in setting up an after-school club for her students where they could write letters to the kids in the Afghan families, and then the Afghan families could write back to them. So kind of like an international pen pal program that LAF would run and coordinate with you and the school. So again, who'd be a good person to talk about that one?
We can talk about that, and actually, Dr. Gonzalez and folks with the various districts or folks who are going might be interested in learning more about that and being a part of that conversation. I think we can probably take that one offline, but I'm happy to coordinate that.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'll follow up with you on that one.
Yes.
Okay, I will do that.
Blake, if I may just take us back for that school enrollment assistant for just a minute. We have seen a couple of volunteers from the community coming in to bring families for enrollment. And then to your and Ariel's point, we would like to ensure that cohesive enrollment that we have already established with the Institute and not duplication of services. So if at any point you will have community partners who are willing to support your efforts in that and coordinate with us districts, I'll be happy to spend some time just outlining the process and what should be brought in with the family so that it is smooth if in case those community partners are supporting that part of your work. So just let us know and I'll be happy to share that.
I would just like to add and to thank Ala, Dr. Gonzalez, and all of her team, because they have been very, very helpful with enrolling children, regardless of whether they live in the city or the county, into schools. Ala and her team have really helped us with navigating through for the county and making sure that we're getting children enrolled in school as quickly as possible. So I really just want to send that thank you to Ala and her team and St. Louis Public Schools, because you've really been a great help enrolling all of the newly arrived children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aria. Thank you, Ala, for that. Blake, I'm not sure that I hope that we've covered everything that needs to be covered in this meeting, and if there are any more questions, we will be happy to take those. But without which, just quickly, I know we will not have a meeting before that. On January 12th, we're going to be having a press conference where some of these conversations that we're having